We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk. Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And guess what? Still locked down. Anyways, hope you guys are all well. Thank you for joining us. Let's get right into it. Soul Performance, obviously.
Exhaust company. Yep. That's
Who are they?
Things.
What?
I think they make exhaust for Porsches.
Make some pretty trick stuff, right? So anything you have, GT3, we have a friend, it runs it on his Voodoo Blue GT3. I'm running it on the Turbo S. If they're obviously going on cars at that level, they're running on our buddies down in Sarasota.
Even my Medio 997 has.
Exactly. So I think the big thing I think we want to tell a lot of people about with them is a lot, not that they're just a sponsor, but some of the track time. Obviously, Chris puts a lot of track time on his GT3. The Suncoast Porsche guys put a lot of track time on their Cayman, and they beat the piss out of them. And these exhausts can handle the extreme temperature and the extreme cooking and not like snap and break off. Prime example, the reason why I bring that up is because Suncoast Porsche was running multiple different exhausts at different points. I'm not going to name the companies.
We could name them because we know.
Don't want to name the companies, but literally one of their track sessions one day, since that's a turbo car that they're running, that 718, I guess it got too hot, meaning like as far as exhaust gases go, and it compromised the metal and it literally broke off, they said. Like the exhaust broke. I don't know if it was at a weld point. They didn't get into the details of it. But the point of it is if they're out there doing a track session, your exhaust breaks and falls apart, it's a shit product. These are not shit products. They're made in the USA. They're made in Pennsylvania by Americans. They're not outsourced. So you should have comfort in purchasing an American product. Are they cheap? No. But you're getting what you pay for. And they're also not just something that they're making a run of the mill and just stamping them all out and have a whole shelf full of them. They're making them as you order them, which is great.
The Mr. Voodoo Blue has lots of track time on his.
Exactly. So. And same with the Suncoast car. And I know my car probably won't get a ton of track time, but I definitely beat the shit out of it so far. And it's definitely looks good, sounds good still, and it's good to go. So just want to let you guys know to support them because they support us. So knock them out. Go check their website out. Any car that you can think of, they make an exhaust for.
Pretty much.
All right. We've talked about this in the past.
I can't believe this is a thing.
Exactly. I can't believe it either. But it's going to be talked about because it is a thing. So those of you who follow us that are avid listeners, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. But this is great because everybody who follows the journey that hasn't maybe listened, maybe you want to rewind because we talked about this a long time ago when they first announced the Cayenne Coupe. I think this was last summer, actually. We even talked about this because that's when they first kind of announced it. And we joked around about it, right? We had fun with it. We're like, oh, you know how funny? Like, there's making so many models. It's just ridiculous. Like, what if they made like a GT Cayenne Coupe? How ridiculous that would be. You're like, oh, yeah, they put some body kit or some shit on it. Put like a spoiler on it. It'd be all this crazy shit. Well, guess what? The shit is happening, guys. Not even kidding. They're making a Cayenne GT. It's been spied. This isn't some like rendering that you see that goes, viral on social media. This has actually been captured on track. I can't believe this is happening. And we'll get into the details of it, but I just kind of want to hear your thoughts and theories behind this right now. How well received will this be? Will people buy this?
I mean, I don't know that I've seen a Cayenne Coupe in person, so there's that.
Well, yeah, they're in European countries, obviously, first. Like, they always get all the shit before us, but they're starting to be released. They're in the U.S. I've seen some press guys have had them. No, but however,
we haven't really seen them. They're not even, those are not
we haven't even been able to review one yet. We will soon, but we'll.
So that's like, we don't even know what really the market is like on those. So then adding an extra amount of flavor in the GT class, who's asking for this is my question.
No one.
Who said, you know what, my Cayenne Coupe, I could use a little bit more power, and I like a GT series, please. Yeah. I mean, I could understand if they all of a sudden they went and they released the Trans-Siberian Cayenne.
Yeah, something more Overlander, right? Like, I think that would work a lot better.
A lot more sense to
because people are buying old Cayennes and doing that anyways. I think if they made something newer,
the old Gelander Wagen or whatever,
like something cool,
whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, whatever. Like nothing crazy aggressive, but something off-road capable, right? Almost kind of like I hate to say it, but like a Raptor Cayenne, right? Or something like that. Something maybe has like some serious like Baja style like suspension, maybe a little bit like wider track. But circling back to this car, okay?
Yeah.
I agree with you. No one's asking for this. However, Porsche has come out and said things to the effect of probably answering your question. And the answer to that question is the reason why they're making this is they want to compete with the Lamborghini Urus.
Okay.
So that's their thought process behind this.
But do they need a GT series to compete with the Urus? Like, does that? I mean, they can't just dial up the Cayenne Coupe, or they think it's going to be such a radical.
I think that they just want to call it something else just because they make it that much more special. Almost kind of, and you know how this goes. Almost the same thing with anybody in the Porsche lineup, or something you have to like look up to. If you buy, say you buy a Cayenne Coupe and you buy whatever the model is, maybe you buy, a Cayenne Coupe S. Yeah. But you really want the GT.
Well, I mean, I agree, and it does line up with the rest of the lineup. Everybody has a GT car now, even the SUVs.
So, theory behind this, obviously this isn't confirmed stuff, but this is what they said they think is going to happen to the car. No actual numbers other than the actual displacement size. 4-liter twin turbo with crazy amount of power. Heard somewhere in the upwards of like 700-ish horsepower.
I mean, you're going to need it, though, because you have weight.
Yeah.
That you're moving around.
Well, if you want to compete with the Urus, you have to carry 700 horsepower, right?
The Urus is what, 600 something?
I think like 680 something. Like that. I don't quote me on that. It's up there. But either way, so this is one Porsche has said they want to be a direct competitor for that car, and that's why they're making this. However, with that being made, and to support Lamborghini, the Urus has done really well as far as people buying them. And that's where I was asking you, how well do you think this will do? Because it's that competitor. I don't think it's gonna do as well just because Lamborghini's only SUV is the Urus.
Exactly. They
as opposed to
I agree with
Porsche
you.
has multiple different models of SUV.
Technically they have two, but then they have
within that line. That's what I'm getting at. Within that line they have. Meaning, like, there's not like a Lamborghini Urus base.
No,
and there's a Lamborghini Urus, like, GT. There's a Lamborghini Urus this. It's just the Urus. Yeah. So I think that less is more almost, if that makes sense. Meaning, like, you don't get to choose. This is what it is.
You're buying an Aventador.
Now, if this is all it was, like Porsche made, that if they were just getting into the SUV game and, like, this is it, I think it'd probably do pretty well.
So you think if they just went Cayenne Coupe GT and that's it? Then they would
I think it'd probably crush. To support, though, all of these coupe nomenclatures as far as SUVs go, and I know this is biased because we're Porsche people, but the Porsche looks the best, I think, as far as the coupe design. Because they've come out with it.
It's a sports car style. That's why.
Well, it's not the only reason why. I think also they learned from design cues. They let everybody else make one, essentially. And they were like, that's awful, that's dog shit, that's awful, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We saw all of these. What's the best aesthetic line to take on this? A bunch
of crumpled up paper.
Yeah, pretty much, where there's like, all right, that don't even bring that to the table. Okay, so this needs to be our rake on our roof line because this is more eye-pleasing. This needs to be this. This needs to be that. Yeah. So I think they were able to sit back and almost call their shot because they watched everybody else's design look horrible. And then they came out with like, okay, we're going to be the best looking coupe. Whatever that's worth.
Well, and the spoiler looks kind of like the 992 spoiler too. So you're following a lot of the family line now as far as what looks like what.
It's kind of, circling back to the GT Coupe is I'm not saying like it'll do horrible. I think it'll just be just like anything when the Cayenne line up. Meaning there's not that many people who, when you buy the Cayenne, even before present date, we're talking past, when you want the most souped up Cayenne, where they're like, we have a Cayenne Turbo S. That's the highest level Cayenne you can buy. That was still a very small demographic of people that were buying that car, even though it was an available option. It goes almost back to when we had Taycan talk about where like, who's going to buy a Taycan Turbo S? Not that many people because it has a ridiculous price point, right? But the other ones, they're like, yeah, that's more affordable. Maybe we'll buy those. So I think this is the theory behind this. They just want it to be that maybe the top of the food chain.
They want a halo product.
Yeah, they want a top of that food chain, and that's what that's going to be. And they understand, I guess, where I'm going with this. Porsche has understood over the last decade how much weight and traction the GT nomenclature has gained from them.
Yeah, they definitely have
as a brand, because
I agree with that.
Even with a big manufacturer, they couldn't have anticipated the growth behind it, because look at it, the 996, when they first initially launched that car, the purpose and the ethos behind that car, right? That was made just for the track. And people wasn't well received at first. Like in 03 and 04, when in the US at least, because we didn't get the first one, we didn't get the Mark 1, we got the Mark 2. People didn't understand what that was. Even Porsche people didn't even understand what that was. They're like, wait a minute, this is kind of a race car, but it's got a street VIN, and I can drive it occasionally, or I can drive it on the street, and I can go to the track with it. Help me understand. I think even at that point,
I mean, it's $7 America.
Yeah, so that's when it was kind of born for the GT cars, the GT3. And I think once that came around, and then the next gen, the 997 came out, then it started to get a little bit more traction where people were like, hey, I can buy this car for $125,000 MSRP, makes a lovely noise, revs to 9,000. I can go to the track with it. Yeah, it's a little bit raw. Yes, they don't make air-cooled cars anymore, but this is as close as I can get.
I mean,
it's almost like you thought, like, at least for me, when looking back, when they almost, as an engineering standpoint, I know they were into racing, so don't get me wrong. And the same thing behind it, racing we follow the racing, I should say.
Yeah.
So when the GT3 class came out, that was the new thing. And then they were like, okay, we need to homologate this. So then it was kind of an afterthought where they made it for the public. They didn't really care because they wanted to race in this GT series. Yeah. So that's kind of where that car came from. But I think indirectly, almost kind of as a byproduct, it kind of pulled up some of those curmudgeons that were air-cooled diehards to say, if I buy a water-cooled car,
it's going to be a GT.
At least it's going to be a GT car. This is as close as I can get to an air-cooled car.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of gave them a way to continue to follow on with the modern cars and kind of feel air-cooled still. That's just totally like in the weeds, being an enthusiast and being friends with a lot of people that have that like mindset.
Yeah.
I think that was an indirect byproduct that worked out really well for Porsche. I think that was the goal there, but it wasn't like they sat down at a boardroom and like, this is what we want to attack. It just kind of happened.
I can see, I mean, maybe you're also the guy that just has a GT car and you want everything to be a GT car.
There's people like that too. But again, that's also a newer development in the last decade, just for the simple fact of GT cars weren't always around.
Yep.
Like in the last 15 years or whatever, like it's still in the grand scheme of things, GT cars are still kind of babies. Like the newest, at least for us, the Mark IIs, the earliest ones you could really get were like 03 essentially. So I mean, that's only 17 years really.
Yeah.
I mean, so
out of the whole lineage.
Yeah. So it's still kind of a new concept, and it really, really didn't, like I said at the beginning, didn't take fire like it did till like late, like almost midway in, like almost 997.1 end to run, where people were kind of starting to figure it out.
Even I would agree with that too, because even .2s there wasn't a whole bunch of they weren't everywhere.
Exactly. And also it was timing thing, it was recession and 08 and all that other stuff. But you get it. But anyways, the point is, I get why they're doing it. I wonder how well received this will be, because are we just being ridiculous now? Like we're calling an SUV a GT car, and it goes back to us talking about this almost a year ago, how it was laughable, and we laughed it off.
I mean, there could be a series somewhere we're not seeing where
there's no way in hell there's going to be an SUV series.
Some Baja series that Porsche wants to get in, or some rally European thing they want to get in.
But then that goes back to what you were saying earlier. Why not build an Overlander?
Yeah,
because that would make more sense for that series, 100%. Like a rally, like a rally one.
And I think that would actually be communicated easier with people, no matter what. I mean, SUV only or not.
Yeah, I think they kind of missed the boat on this, because honestly, like off-roading is very, very trendy and popular right now at the moment. I mean, proof is in the pudding, at least from the Porsche world. There's so many of these companies that have popped up making 911 safaris, and then people safaring all this other stuff.
AKA Lee.
Yeah, and other people, you know what I mean? That they could easily make something from the factory and people will be all over it. And it doesn't even have to be extreme, you don't have to get like something crazy, but even put some like all-terrains and like raise the suspension some and put some like Fox suspension or something like that on, and then sell that. People would eat that up, because
of course.
I mean, look at people buying the way they buy Raptors. 85% of the people that are buying Raptors are city driving them.
Oh, 100%.
So what's the difference? It's not about your use, and I'm not trying to call people posers. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the success of the sale of that car, it doesn't matter what environment you're using it in. It's still a successful sale.
Well, and even with the GT4, they're still doing that rally style car, which that just blows my mind. They're willing to do that with the GT4. Mm-hmm. Why was there any loss in going with a SUV to do the same thing?
Like re-enter the Dachau rally or something, and then make a Dachau version of this, something like that.
Dakar car or Cayenne.
Yeah, sick. Game over. People be lining up to buy them because, and the reason why I say that is, I just feel like it helps dilute maybe the other cars, even though they're not direct competitors, meaning like the GT3s or any of that stuff. But if I'm in the Porsche lineup, in theory, I'm sitting down and I have the income to do this, and that we've talked about this before, where you have the perfect Porsche household. If I'm sitting in there and I have maybe a turbo car and I have a GT3 and then I have an SUV for like the kids or whatever, if we go camping or do whatever we want to do, I don't want to buy the GT version of that. Like I want to buy like the Overlander version of that. Like I want to be able to, because you're not going to take the GT car and run to your cabin or go off-roading or do whatever or light off-roading with it.
But then, so the counter to that is maybe they realize that, and maybe they're counting on it to be more of street use than it really is being a SUV.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, they're saying like, maybe they're just calling people out on their shit and saying like, look, you're not going to go off-road with this, so why am I going to build you an off-road? Because you're just going to go to Neiman Marcus anyway, so I'm going to build you a thing that lives on the pavement.
Let's just let you hit the Autobahn.
So yeah, let you go fast. End of story.
Fine.
Yeah, you're right. You know, they may have cut the shit on that and just said, this is what we're going to do. I think it would be actually an interesting option, just like this is an option. If you're just optioning stuff out, and we love Porsche, obviously, so I'm not talking trash, why not throw another off-road option in? Yeah. Why not let me order a Cayenne off-road option? You can call it the whatever the hell package you want, but fill in the blank, as opposed to me buying, well, if I want to buy a Cayenne Coupe S off-road edition or whatever the hell.
It should be like secret option. Should be like, just mention the word Dakar.
Exactly.
Dakar.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it gets transformed.
Yeah. Either way, final thoughts on that. Ridiculous, not ridiculous. What are your thoughts?
I think it makes sense to line up with their other lines, having a GT line. Mm-hmm. Whether it sells, who knows?
Yeah, ridiculous. Anyways, I'd be more apt for an Overlander version, but that's just me.
100%.
All right, so we've held back on this for a little bit because I wanted it to kind of marinate for a little bit, and I wanted all the facts to come out, but it looks like for, obviously protection purposes, we've got all the facts we're going to get. So let's talk about it for a little bit. The Gemballa GT accident that happened in New York roughly 10 days ago, I guess now.
A little blue joyride.
Yeah. Those of you that are listening that don't know, go ahead and Google the accident. I think it's also on YouTube. You can see what happened with this. So a little bit of background on this. There's only 25 of these in the world, right? As you can imagine, it's essentially a Carrera GT that was sent to Gemballa to get a lot of stuff done to it. Very, very few of them exist. Some of them got repaints, some of them are body kits. Obviously they got tunes, they got stuff, they got a lot of shit done to them. So they're really nice cars. They're very rare cars.
Yeah.
Long story short, some guy was hooning around in New York City, lost control of it, crashed in the back of a parked van.
Yeah.
And
he was drifting. That's essentially what I heard. But.
And then fled the scene. Or attempted to flee the scene.
This car was like smashed beyond belief.
This wasn't like a tap. I mean, it was like frame damage, wheels like ripped off.
It moved that car from where it was sitting probably 10 car lengths. Mm-hmm. And it was a van that it moved. And
it sent the van airborne, which is crazy.
It was absolutely...
When you watch the footage.
It looks like an undrivable car, so the fact that he tried to get away from that point...
Yeah, and drove it 5 blocks is what was the story. Yeah, the car made it another 5 blocks.
That just proved you to the Porsche engineering right there.
Exactly. You can melee the car and you can still drive it.
Yeah. V10, F1 power.
Obviously, if you watch the video, you can see that there's some type of impairment going on as far as who knows what level of intoxication and what he opted to use to make himself impaired. Yeah. That's still out for debate. And I don't know if that'll ever become public because this guy's obviously attorneyed up and he's all lawyered up. And this guy's very wealthy. Used to have ties to Gold Rush Rally, all those things that have already come out. I'm not telling you things that you haven't heard if you've obviously paid attention to this.
Crashed either.
Yeah, he's crashed multiple high-end cars before. And the reason why I bring this up, where I'm going with this, where I'm building to is, there's those car YouTubers that are out there that like to do builds, and we know several of them. If you don't know, I think there's one in Florida. Do you think this car ends up in one of those guys' hands and tries to redo this car because it is so rare? Granted, I'm sure there's frame damage because it's a carbon fiber monocoque and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But however, even with that being said, only 25 of these in the world. Do you think this car is not going to just disappear? Like you just don't. This isn't going to the crusher.
Now they're not going to crush
this. Yeah, they're famous, and they're not going to crush the car either. Yeah. So, do you think it ends up there, or do you think it ends up with somebody else to say this is a smoking deal? Even if it does have a salvage title, I'm going to get a Gemballa for fill in the blank.
I don't think it ends up in any YouTubers. I don't think they have the money for it. Like, I mean, even the guys that are making some serious money, that's still going to be a chunk of change.
Because they were saying like this is probably like, a $900,000 to like $1.5 million car. No, like when it was brand new.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like even in the state that it's in is like 300 to 350. Probably.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. To take that and let it be that pile of metal right now.
Yeah, that probably needs another $300,000 in it to make it right.
I mean, that'd be questionable whether they'd be doing that. I can see it.
And if even it's capable, right? Like because of the way the monocoque set up.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like frame stretching or anything like that. You're done at that point.
Yeah.
As hard as that wreck happened. I mean, maybe you have a cool coffee table at the end of the day.
A really expensive one.
It ran. Maybe, I mean, we know some guys that have cool coffee tables.
Yeah, maybe you buy it just for the engine.
Yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you take that and you put it in something else, or maybe you take your Carrera GT and you build this motor like crazy out, and you remove your stock Carrera GT motor and you go have fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's possible.
Maybe you do something different with it.
Yeah, or maybe you take that and put it in a guy that has the money, and like you said, maybe he builds has somebody goes and professionally builds him, CADs him a kit. And then it's essentially a kit, but it has a Carrera GT motor, and he's having fun with it, like you said, on track.
Andy just takes his motor out, and then gets a new Carrera.
Yeah, I don't know if it ends up. I just thought it was an interesting thing because how there's the trend of these guys building all these wreck cars, and there's so many channels that stands up because of this. But
it's a project car, but I mean, I don't know who's got the money to do that.
Yeah, it's so one off. But this thing's not going to disappear, right? It's going to end up somewhere.
It gets in a collector's. Somewhere. It goes somewhere like that. Yeah, I agree with that.
But, all right, so on the flip side of that, last question on this whole topic, this particular topic, do you think his behavior negatively impacts the car community because there's a lot of car people out there? We think we dominate, but actually we're very, very minor.
A percentage.
Yeah, we're a minority in the hobbies in the world, for example, like fishing or hunting outweighs anything about automotive. And where I'm going with this is because it was such public knowledge, and it ended up it was like on New York Times, it was on everywhere because it happened in New York. But anyways, any social media stuff, and not to mention everybody was trapped at home, so this came out.
Yes, you're really seeing that.
So do you think the dynamic of this says like, oh, those car people are jackasses because of this, and I'm just saying, does it just kind of like
you could
even more of a negative light on people?
I think you could posit that, but I think that it would be more of because of what style car it was. It's a wealthy person being dumb. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. That's where I think it would go more naturally than just
I hope so.
Gathering all the car people together and be like, "Oh, see, this is car people. That's what they do."
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it just goes into more like rich dumbass category.
Yeah.
And especially that people have taken the time to do the research to figure out this guy's crashed multiple high-end cars where they're just probably like, all right, this guy's a problem. He's the problem, not the car people. He's the problem.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's that way. I just thought it was an interesting question to bring up and talk to you about.
I don't think he's bringing down. I mean, he at a level maybe he brings down a little bit of the car people, but I think it's more often it's because what.
Well, I don't even mean it from a perception standpoint. I know this sounds really bad, but these lawmakers who sit up there in Congress and do all these things, obviously they're not immune to social media, so they see things like that. However, unfortunately, they are immune to having to live a normal life because they live in a bubble. And then I wonder if these guys sit around and be like, we got to do something about these naturally aspirated, or not even, they wouldn't even use those terms, but they're just like, you know what I mean? They're like, these cars, these race cars, these things need to be regulated. I don't care how rich you are. You cannot, we just need to not sell these. Like, how do we
drives a Camry.
Yeah. How do we regulate this stuff? Because this is ridiculous. Can you imagine? This is New York City. What if there were people out there? You would have killed thousands of people. And where I'm going with this is, how those guys get into the nits and, and start hypothetically blowing the situation up. And they're absolutely right. He could have killed a lot of people if there were people out there.
As he drives his Ferrari FF around.
Yeah.
Safe.
Whatever, is chauffeured around in his, Maybach or whatever it is, because, the driver's safe or whatever. But, you get the point when I just wonder if, unfortunately, maybe it's going to impact those people who make the laws. Who knows? Yet to be seen. I hope not. I hope this gets put in the category of being a dummy. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm not encouraging you, obviously, to support it, but you should definitely educate yourself and see what this guy did. Learn from the things that not to do. Don't do this. Don't be that guy. Definitely don't want to be that guy who put your car in jeopardy and other lives in jeopardy, right? So, and yourself. So make good decisions. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the stuff that's coming out.
Yep.
Thank you guys listening to PCAR Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Check us out on YouTube. We release videos on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Help support the channel. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment. We really appreciate that. Again, circling back to pcartalk.com. There is a newsletter created on there. Please put your information in there. That way we can keep you up to date on anything that's coming forward and anything that we're going to be doing moving forward and all the exciting things that are coming out. Now back to the show. All right, we're back from break, and let's talk a little bit about this. We're going to talk about Taycan a little bit. We understand how much the Taycan Turbo S, we've talked about that, is.
Yeah, lots of power, 600 some horsepower.
Yeah, as far as price points, though. So just recently, Porsche released, because everybody was wondering, because they were trying to guess around and Porsche hadn't really talked about it too much. Finally, officially, Taycan 4S.
Yep.
MSRP at 103.
Which is 100 off the Turbo S.
Exactly. So that's basically what the Tesla Model S is, right? Mm-hmm. If I stand corrected, if that's about what the price point is, right? 105,000, I think, or something like that with it fully loaded. 4S also has the same range as the Turbo S. Obviously, it doesn't have the same punch.
Nope.
But it's still going to have a lot of power still, just because it has all the same kind of battery technology. Obviously, it's just probably something to do with software, just not unleashing it all. Do you feel now at 103, is this more of a direct competitor now for Tesla, even though Porsche has come out and said verbally, we are not competing with Tesla? I'm just thinking from a price perspective, since both of these are...
If you're cross shopping, I think yes. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, because this has to come on your list, right?
Yeah.
If you're shopping and you're okay with 105 for an electric car and Tesla's on the list, this has to come up, whether you're... And I'm talking about unbiased brand specific people. I'm talking about people that are just EV shopping. EV shopping, and you're okay with $100,000. You have zero bias of Tesla, Porsche, or whatever. I think this is a major player now.
Yeah, I definitely think, like we said, fit finish works, and then the ability to improve it through the app system. I mean, I'm sure that's maybe in the Teslas, but I know there's upgrades. I think it is a player in that realm.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the extended battery life, whatever that is, if that's possible.
I think the fit and finish alone, the people doing their research, if both of these are sitting there, even if the Model S, like Performance P, whatever the hell they call it, even if it's a little bit quicker, this isn't going to be like gobs slower, the 4S.
It's still a full EV experience.
Exactly. And I think the fit and finish, for me, you would have to give that, and I know we're really biased because we're Porsche, obviously, podcast, but goes to Porsche just because of the R&D and the fit and finish behind the car. And then on top of that, the sleekness of the way that car looks.
Yeah, I mean, we have listeners that have bought Taycans recently that have Teslas. And there's some of the reasoning was it looks the same. All the Teslas look the same. So there's no differentiation in that. And then even from newer and older or what have you. And then
And the Taycan has a sportier feel. We've driven it.
Yeah.
I've driven a Tesla. It is a sporty feel. There's a lower sense of gravity in the car because it's just lower to begin with. It feels more of a sports sedan than the Tesla as far as transportation goes. I think if you're in the market, I think this is a major win. And we knew it would be. We just didn't know what the number was until now. And now that we know what the number is, I think it's an interesting factor because it's still a 4S. It's still a performance because an S is still a sport. And then there's the bits of options you can do, right? Like if you like that Turbo S wheels, you could still option that car with them if you want. So
that's what, and in fact, that's what one of our guys did. One of our listeners, when he optioned it for like arena red metallic, carbon fiber trim, different wheels. I mean, his option back, it was expensive. I think he went up like another 20 grand or something. But, I mean, you can.
But the fact that you could do it, and we talked to Porsche execs even when the Taycan was launched, and they said this is where the sweet spot's going to be. This is where the bulk of their meat, what they're going to sell for Taycans, are going to be at.
Well, it makes sense.
And I was wondering that when he said that, right? Because I was wondering, I'm like, how the hell is that? Okay, what's your price point going to be? So now it makes sense where they will announce the price point.
It's super good, but I mean, you're right there. You're talking base Carrera numbers right now. And so that's between 2-door and 4-door, and your performance is above that. Yeah. It's hitting them pretty hard. I mean, so if you really wanted to go green or just like the electric vehicle in general, there it is.
Yeah, and as Porsche, like we indicated, that their goal anyhow is this is essentially their mid-grade Taycan. It's not the base, not the highest, but they feel that this is going to be the most one that everybody orders. Yeah. This is where they're going to sell the bulk of them at. And whatever that number is, they don't know yet, obviously, but it'll be more than all the other ones probably. And I think if you're in that market to shop, if you're in that EV expensive type of market, I think the support that you're going to have as well from a manufacturer like Porsche is going to be better than Tesla. Not that Tesla's poor. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that the power of Porsche behind that for two reasons. One of the main reasons is this is their first EV, full EV.
So they got to be behind it.
So they definitely don't want to like leave you hanging because that will spread like wildfire your bad review. So they're going to, I think on the flip side of that, you're going to get taken care of really well. As opposed to you see all these horror stories about people with Teslas of like, oh my God, it showed up here and all the panel gaps are different. The fucking paint was a different color than it was supposed to be on this panel than this panel. And this is a brand new car. Those things will not happen to a Porsche. Like it will not show up where it looks like it didn't get painted thoroughly.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
You won't hear weird things and creaks and sounds in the Porsche.
Yeah, because they've gone to such an extent to stop that stuff.
And for all the naysayers for back in the day, or not back in the day, but just from months ago when the Taycan Turbo S first launched, everybody's like, yeah, but it's so damn expensive, and you can buy a model, and the price point on the Model S was so much significantly less, and that's what they were comparing it to. Now that conversation's gone because now you have a Taycan 4S that costs the same. And now, okay, now what are you going to say? Like there's nothing to say now because like now you can buy them for like equal pricing. So who are you going to pick now? And I think it's a good gut punch, even though they say they're not a direct competitor. And
and the reason why they probably would say they're not direct competitors because they're based on performance no matter what, even though they're full EV. It's not about and the driving experience, not just a commuter car.
Well, it's also mass production. So the reasoning behind it too is Tesla claims to want to mass produce these cars because that's what they are. That's all they have. They don't have any gas power cars. And Porsche's claim was saying, hey, we're rolling these EVs out right now, but they're not the bulk of what we do. So with that being said is like we already talked about, there's like 20,000 allocations. Well, Tesla's selling more than 20,000 Model S's every year. So that's where Porsche execs were saying, we're not a direct competitor because we don't produce the volume of these cars that they are. Maybe someday, but right now they're not doing that. Who knows? And that was their argument of why we're not a direct competitor because we're not a mass-produced product, essentially, as opposed to Tesla.
Which is
now, cool. I don't know from a fact, you guys can tell us in the comments how many Teslas they're making per year. Actual, not what he's claiming. Actual data, raw numbers, because we all know there's a little bit of skewing of
showmanship.
Yeah, there's a lot of business related promises that, oh, we're going to make fill in the blank with how many number of cars, and then they end up making 30% less than they actually did because who knows, a damn dust bowl storm started up at their factory, and whatever excuse came up with that year, that's what they came out with. Whatever, you get the point. Yep. Either way, I think it's a nice added vehicle price point to the market, even though we're Porsche nuts, to have something to choose from other than just Tesla at $100,000. Yeah. You can choose Porsche at $100,000 and add a level of opulence as opposed to just like a full EV. That's something that's just a run of the mill to try to get you from point A to point B. This is a little bit more than that. So I think it's interesting. I'm glad that number came out. I'm glad, as pretentious as it sounds, it seems a lot more affordable than the Turbo S.
Yeah, 100%. It does.
So it seems like more of a realistic player now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's out there. Let's talk a little bit about trending 996.
You think so? Huh? I think it's trending, huh?
Well, just because it's not just me. When I was doing the live feed with Drew, he was the one who actually brought it up. He was just like, that's kind of the hot ticket item, if there is one, where 964s kind of blew up and everybody was chasing them for a while, and all these people were chasing certain cars were being chased. And he brought it up and was saying, hey, I feel 996s, at least the circles and the people he's talking to and people that are making purchases, I don't want to use the term maybe like hot car, but it is trending.
Well, yeah, I think everybody's starting to realize that it's still an i11. Mm-hmm. And they're getting over the headlights that everybody talked about and getting it for what it is.
Yeah.
You can get into a turbo a lot cheaper than anything else because of,
So do you think we finally have gotten to that crest of like where people have finally gotten to the point where they're saying, I don't give a shit what you think. I'm buying this car, whether you want to talk trash about me or not, because I feel like that was a big barrier for a while.
I think it was, but I think now it's been so long that it's almost nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Now it's a cool thing because it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's had time to mature
and marinate on people, mm-hmm. and to, I guess, almost phase those people out, the naysayers out, essentially. And I think it's also the support of places like, CSR in England and all these places that have taken this ugly duckling and like jazzed them up and like made them club sports and done all these things, and they sell these packages. And there's people, even just individual enthusiasts, have done it to their own cars. Mm-hmm. And I think that people are using that platform, and people are now starting to see modified versions of that and what a stock one can go to, but if you have the vision, as opposed to looking at one, you're like, oh man, I don't know what I could do with that. But then when you see one, it's done. That's kind of really motorsporty.
RSR kit on
like a motorsport kind of one, with like a ducktail and maybe some coilovers and maybe a roll bar and some Recaros, and you're adding things in, but you're making it your own. It's almost kind of an outlaw 996 essentially. Yeah. And you and I have had this conversation offline many, many times about this car, and the main reason is because of the price point. If you're going to go and outlaw a car, and they made a lot of them and a lot of people don't like them,
it's almost like the SC.
What does it matter?
Really?
What does it matter what you do to it? Like, you can't hate it anymore because of what I did to it. I actually upgraded it, right? Because you didn't like the way it looked stocked. You guys used to talk trash about it. Now I've done all these things. I actually made it perform better. I made it handle better. And it's a more fun car to drive now.
I mean, seeing Sunil's yellow lighted GT3, yes, GT3, but seeing it behind you is still, it looks cool. I mean, it's those headlights do something a little different than everybody else.
There's something to be said for Metzger engines too, right? You get a turbo or you get a GT3, those are Metzger engine cars, and they're special in their own right. And even if you don't go that, say you go with let's talk about this for a little bit, because we have a couple friends that have them, 996 C2s, manuals. Aero packs are not aero pack cars, but you could do things to them. I mean, a lot of enthusiasts are hunting that car. That car weighs 2980.
Yeah, which is...
it has 300 horsepower, and you could probably get a little bit more weight out of it if you really wanted to get a little bit more ridiculous. You could take all the bullshit out of the front. You could take some of the seats out. You could put some lighter seats in, take some electronics out. You could probably save 100, 150 pounds, beef it up a little bit, do a tune, do exhaust, headers, tune up your suspension. You got a nice little rocket now. I mean, essentially, you've got something that probably weighs 2,800 pounds, that has 300 horsepower, and it's a Porsche.
If you really want to get to it, you could do a VF Engineering kit, and then bump it up by 100.
And I don't even think you need to do that with that car because it's light enough already. If you get a C2 and you really want to try to start to outlaw it and do your things to it, and if you really want a 911 and you want to get into the scene, I really still believe that's a great place to be. However, the numbers are going up. Prime example. Watch the car from flat6.com. They're cool guys. First Flat 6, excuse me. They saw a car sell from a broker. It was a Guards Red with black interior, which is pretty rare spec. And it was a factory aero kit car.
Okay.
I think it was a 2002, maybe 03.
A little bit of Sean.
Something like that. Something to that effect. Car only 30,000 miles on it. Super low mileage. I think some broker sold it for, and I don't know the names of the broker, but I'm just, telling a story for context purposes, like for 27 grand.
Okay.
Bought it. Another broker bought it from that broker. Literally like 2 or 3 months later, it sold on BAT last week for $38,000.
That's a markup.
They didn't do anything with it. They just hung on to it for like a month or two. They advertised it on their site, and then they put it on BAT, and it sold on BAT for 38 grand. I was saying it's interesting because they posted a thing on Instagram, meaning a First Flat 6, and I commented, and they were like, what do you guys think this would sell for? Because it was listed at this price, but it didn't sell for that, and it's going to go to auction and all that kind of stuff. I said, I think low 30s would get it done. Somebody counteracted me with a, snide comment like, oh, that car's a $20,000 car all day. I said, okay, I agree with you, but that's not where the market's at with them. They're actually, people are desiring them, so the market's up on them, especially factory aero cars.
Yeah, that's the difference.
And it wasn't a run-of-the-mill car, meaning run-of-the-mill color, excuse me. Not that there's anything wrong with the run-of-the-mill colors, meaning like silver or black or like a grayish, whatever, a non-PTS. And not that Guards Red is, but it wasn't a poppy color. So I had Guards Red, black interior, desirable combo, factory aero, only 30,000 miles, and went for 38 grand. What do you think? Was that too much for that car?
I don't think it is now.
Yeah. 2 years ago, that car could be had for like 18 grand.
That's true, but it's not 2 years ago.
Exactly. But that just shows you 2 years, 24 months, what that does.
I think with the push of everybody calling the 966, the 996 was going to have its day. I think enough people started saying it and then believing it, and then now it is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the last 911.
And the Mangus movement on it.
The Mangus movement definitely has moved it a little bit. But I think everybody else as a whole has come together and go, well, if we're going to get a 911, I might as well get a 996. And then now the good ones like the Aero Packs and the special colors are going to start fetching those numbers.
Yeah. And I think that happens with any type of brand, even like with the 964, when people started to get on board, people started hunting colors and hunting specific things. And the people in the know have already bought the 996s that they wanted. That, it's not too late. They're still out there, but I'm just telling you, I'm not saying these cars are going to be $100,000 someday. I don't believe that. But the days of getting a 30,000 mile factory aero kit 996 for 18 grand obviously is gone because his car went for 38. And granted, that was one outlier on a website.
But we'll see.
That was an auction. Yeah, exactly. But to be fair, to give that credit, there wasn't that many that left factory with aero anyways. And to have one that's not beat the shit, that's also more rare. Meaning that's not that special of a car, but it is a special car because it's a C2 and it looks like the Mark 1 GT3. It has all these like cool elements. It's a light car like we talked about earlier. And we talked about certain models within the 996 range that we do feel it's going to be very valuable. Obviously the GT2, it was valuable from the beginning. It was a modern classic. They made 350 of them. It's still valuable. But it'll only continue to increase in value. And then it just funnels down from there. I mean, it funnels down to 996 Turbo S, falls down to the regular 996, the GT3, the 4S. All of those cars start to domino, and the rising tide is going to bring all them up. And then from the bottom, even the C2, because it's unique in its own thing, because it's a C2 and it's light and it's all those things.
Steering,
yeah, it's still light. C2, it still has a very Porsche feel. I think we're on an interesting time. Not to say like what's going on in the world, but just in the Porsche market specifically with the 996. I feel like we're at the beginning of the train where they're going to start, because they've already increased. Even when I started looking at them last year, like that same car, even last year was probably 25 grand.
Yeah.
So it's even gone up. And granted, outlier again, 38,000. I still think that was high. I still think that was probably, and I stand by it just because I'm stubborn, but I think I'm right. I think that's a $32,000 car.
Probably, and then it just happened to be somebody who really
wanted
guards red on black.
Yeah, and it comes down to, it was an auction. It was a perfect setting for it. Somebody wanted that car. Now, I still think it's...
Do you think it was another broker, or was it somebody that was passionate about the car?
I don't think another broker would pay that price point for it, because those guys are pretty in tune with that thing. I think it was a legitimate buyer who wanted that car because it was a low mile car. It hadn't been beaten down. It had all the right specs in it, and I think they were like, I want this. This is a good spot to be at, you know. And even at 38,000, which is still kind of pricey, but you think about how much old school Porsche you're still getting for 38 grand. You can't buy really unless it's a clapped out air cooled car for that price.
Yeah,
that's not going to need a lot of work. This car didn't need anything. I mean, barring probably an IMS bearing, but you know, I'm just saying as far as
first gen water cooled.
Yeah. It wasn't like clapped out, I guess is where I'm getting at with this car. Do you feel, and I know I'm kind of like loaded you up for it, so your answer is probably going to be pretty obvious, but since, you know, we talked to Drew about this and him being on the West Coast, he's feeling it out there. We're feeling it on the East Coast. From what you've seen with my journey with my 996 search and what I ended up with as far as the car that I picked, and then people that are around us that are buying 996s that you guys don't even know as listeners, but they're just friends of ours that are getting into Porsche for the first time. They're walking into turbos. Do you feel like all of that is starting to make this uptick? Like where people are, hey, kind of, I don't want to say getting crazy because I feel like the supply is running out.
Yeah.
But do you feel that people feel like the good ones are running out?
I mean, maybe the good ones are running out, but I think the people are starting to appreciate what the 996 is as far as being a 911, and not just hating on it for looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our friends, some of them are surprised that they're getting turbos.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, and to give a little bit of people listening a food for thought on it, when I was searching for my car, just to kind of put it out as a litmus, all of the search engines as a whole, at any given point, you can pick whatever one you want. Auto Trader, Auto Tempest, you know, it pulls all of them, Car Gurus, whatever site you want to use. So I'm obviously getting very specific, but in the weeds. With the 996 Turbo, what I was searching for, I didn't want to 01 because I was worried about synchro stuff, second gear. So it had to be a coupe, had to be manual, and I wanted it to be a turbo and not a 01. So basically looking through 2002 to 2005-ish for turbos. At any given point on either one of those sites, and a lot of that stuff overlapped, I think the most turbos, and this was nationwide search, now this is just US, maybe 30 cars for sale, 30 turbos that I get to choose from. You know, obviously not adding in Renlist or any of those because there's some outliers there. Maybe, okay, so you add another 10 maybe for sale at any given point on Renlist or whatever.
Still not
so
many
still 40 nationwide to look for. And that's what you get to choose from.
But then you start diving down between colors and all that stuff.
And that's like advertised sales, right? Obviously, there's a lot of cars out there that are for sale, that are not for sale. You got to know somebody, all that stuff. I get that. But I'm just talking about stuff that's been thrown out there to say, I'm selling my car, I'm paying for an ad, let's do this. That's not that much to choose from, is where I'm going with that.
Were there any colors that you wouldn't do?
Like as far as like body paint or?
Yeah, body paint. Interior, we know it's black.
You know, honestly, like, and I think you and I had this conversation before, I was really, really high when I first started doing my journey, and this was almost like 12 months ago. So I wasn't looking, you know, when you start that beginning phase to see what the kind of prices are, you start to learn about the model brand, which ones to stay away from. I was really interested in Speed Yellow when I first started, but as my journey continued, that almost turned into I didn't want that car, no matter what. Not that I have any problems with a Speed Yellow car. I think they look beautiful. I just didn't feel like, for a long-term ownership standpoint, I didn't feel like a Speed Yellow car was going to suit me long-term.
Ketchup and mustard.
Yeah, and I just felt, I just felt it was a little too flashy. Too much.
You're a very subdued guy. So.
Smart ass. I don't mean it like that. I just meant like it's too much yellow.
Okay.
It was just too much. And I think they're great, like, and to each their own, like anybody who owns one. I'm not trying to talk trash. I just felt as time went on, I was like, yeah, you know, the more I look at these, I don't think I want a Speed yellow one. And honestly, I know, and because I have a Guards Red 964, and I can say this for a fact, a Guards Red 996 turbo was definitely out. I was not going to own 2 Guards Red cars. Not that I have anything wrong with Guards Red, but if I was going to have some fun and have another car, I did not want to own another car. It looked the same color as that one. I wanted a little bit of variety. So I think those were my 2 like real bugaboos. But after that, I was kind of open to stuff. Believe it or not, as lame as it sounds, I mean, I was okay with even like a silver, because I was going to do like crazy accenting with it. If I just got a regular turbo, I was going to almost do like a mint green cage and mint green calibers on a silver car, you know, just because it could go with everything. Yeah. I'm happy where I ended up. You know, I ended up with a PTS car. I got lucky. If you would have asked me prior to that car coming up for sale, I would have loved to own a PTS car, but I wasn't even like had my goal set on that. But I think, circling back to the topic, I think they are trending up. And I think even despite what's going on in the economy, I think they're going to continue to tick up, because I think people have finally broken down that barrier of giving a shit, essentially, for lack of a better terms. I don't think anyone cares what anyone else thinks anymore.
Well, I think there's a majority of people now that like them enough where that's okay. It's making it okay.
And even if it isn't, like, I think there's a lot of people that have owned them prior to where it was okay, where people would talk trash about them. I still think that now they were always good cars. I think people finally have just kind of, it's almost like that, it's as elementary as it sounds, that playground mentality is like, don't talk to Billy because he eats bologna sandwiches and he doesn't eat turkey like the rest of us. And they're like, okay, but now it's like cool to eat bologna and everybody's hanging out. And now it's like no one cares. And Billy's the cool guy because he doesn't give a shit what you think about him. So now that's almost a trend. It's flipped where it's like, dude, I'm still having fun. And by the way, I have a 911. So my entry point was a lot less than yours on that car. And I'm having just as much fun as with mine. So I don't care. So I think we finally have turned that table. And there was this couple, not a couple, but there was a lot more people that were more biased even a long time ago, back when you could almost steal a 996 turbo for 30 grand, even not a clapped out one, because people just weren't like, yeah, whatever. Nobody wants that one. And you're like, I'll take it, you know, because, you know, you were ahead of the curve. And I think we're in the curve right now. Yeah, I don't think it's the beginning. I think it's already happened. Yep. Meaning, like, it's not over. Like, we're in it right now is what I'm saying.
Probably mid, not peak.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not peaked out yet by any means. But, like, it's already began prior to this, I think. And it goes circling back to what you were saying with, I think there's enough nostalgia there, too, where people are like, wow, it's pretty old now. Like, if you bought 03, I mean, that's 17 years old, you know? It's
GT1, bro. GT1.
Exactly. And all the other things come out, right? Oh, it's Metzger. Oh, it's this. It's like, and it is. I'm supporting it. Like, I'm a believer. I bought one, and I was hunting it even before we had this topic. I always were a believer. If you listen to the past podcasts, I was always saying that's the best bang for the buck. And it's an obvious one. But honestly, who gives a shit what anybody else thinks? Because they're great cars. They really are. They're great driver cars. At the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to be doing with these things, right? They're machines. We should be driving them. Yep. But enough on that topic. So let's go ahead and close. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's a club member. We thank you guys so much. Thank you for consuming the content. Don't forget that we have a YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, all those things. Make sure that you comment on the podcast because it helps us out a ton. And definitely want to thank all the listeners across the world. And we'll definitely see you guys on the next one.
Yep. See you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of P-Car Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCarTalk or online at PCarTalk.com.